Hello and welcome to another episode of Beyond the Credits and Chords. I am your host, Practical, and I'm joined by...
Danny boy.
This is your boy Rex.
And hey, it's me, Brandon.
And today we're going to talk about progressive metal band Mastodon. They're from Atlanta, Georgia, formed in the year 2000. The band consists of Troy Sanders, he's bass and vocals, Brent Hines, he's lead guitar and vocals, Bill Keller, rhythm guitar, vocals, and Brand Dollar,
Daler, I think.
Daler.
Yeah. So that is Mastodon. Today we're going to be talking about all their albums. This is one of Bont's favorite bands. So I think you should kind of lead us off.
What's
Both
up?
got Mastodon shirts on. Hell yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I love this band. I was telling Rex before we started recording that I feel like I'm kind of one of the OGs. Like, when Remission came out, I remember seeing March of the Fire Ants, the music video on Headbangers Ball, which was being hosted by Jamie Josta at the time.
I fucking hate that guy, dude. I'm sorry. I hate him.
He was the host of Headbangers Ball in the early 2000s and post Ricky Ratman, for those of you old enough to remember that guy too.
Ricky Rat.
So I saw the video for March of the Fire Ants and I thought it was fucking metal as hell and awesome. It was like a guy in an electric chair with a bag over his head and then just screaming into the mic with a super chuggy guitar. It's like, dope. I'm going to go buy that album. So I went to Circuit City, which again, for those of you that are older,
That's what's up.
Circuit City. And I had to ask someone that worked there because I couldn't find it because looking for CDs and like especially metal CDs back when I was in, a sophomore in high school, I think it was. Sometimes the pickings were slim in stores like that. So
Slim picking.
and I remember, I'm thinking back, and I remember the guy that helped me find the Remission CD that actually worked at Circuit City kind of looked like Braun Daler.
He's like,
Skinny white guy with like he had like the same facial features kind of too. Like it's such an image in my mind too. Like it's so funny.
That's funny.
But yeah, got Remission. I love that album. It wasn't an album that I felt like I needed to make sure the rest of you guys listen to because Leviathan is really their big breakout success with Blood and Thunder and it being like an album about Moby Dick, which is kind of cool. And that's got some really great guitar work and stuff like that. But yeah, I mean, that's my story of how I fell in love with Mastodon and one of the reasons why I picked him. Been around since the first album and I'm going to be around for many, many more, hopefully.
Yeah.
How old are those guys? They look older, but I mean, you're thinking 25 years. So when they started, they probably were in their late 20s, maybe early 30s.
You and I saw them live together, and we were calling Troy Gandalf. So
He looks like him, dude. It's awesome.
He's got a long gray beard and long gray hair. He's
hell yeah, dude. Oh, dude, and he absolutely murders it. I mean, seeing them live and listening to their studio albums, like they're one of those bands where it's very far in between where you go and see them, and like sometimes, not all the time, but sometimes they sound better than the recording. And
they're a fantastic live show.
I thought the first time that I saw them with you, when they did Crack the Sky all the way through, like it was absolutely just mind altering. It was so badass, and like the visual stuff they had up on the screen and stuff, it went with the music, and he was kind of telling a story and stuff. So that's kind of what I like about this band. To get the torch passed to me, LeBron actually got me into this band as well. He's shown me the way in quite a few bands, and I'm forever grateful for that. But some of the bands that he's shown me, like Bayside, I'm pretty upset with him. So, but anyways, their sound is just so like, iconic, and just like the way that their guitar work kind of works off of each other at times and works together and kind of tells a story. Obviously, Crack the Sky is one of those ones where like you listen to it front to back and it kind of does tell a story, so to speak. But yeah, it's they're overall just a great band. There's not one of these albums that I was like hesitant to listen to or didn't really care for. They're all a little bit different in their own retrospect, but I feel like the big ones that stand out: "Crack the Sky," "Once More Around the Sun," and then their latest release, "Hush and Grim," kind of stand out to me. Those are the ones that I'm always like, if I want to show somebody, the band for the first time, it's like one of those three. Put one of those three on, and you'll be good. Because some of the earlier stuff is a little, it's a little takes a little getting used to, I guess you could
Rough
say.
around the edges.
A little bit, yeah, but they obviously progress and they get better and better. And a lot of times we fall out of liking a certain band because of their evolution. Some evolve into better sounding bands. Some kind of like lose it, And I felt like this band's never really lost it, at least for me. But yeah, I'm right there with you. This is one of my favorite metal bands probably ever, which is saying a lot. Just being that I'm not a super old fan, but I still appreciate it for what it is. But what about you, Rex? What are your thoughts on Mastodon? I know this might not be your repertoire, so to speak, but what did you take from this?
Honestly, it's I gotta listen to it more. I'll be honest. This band is definitely pretty intricate in ways I can't explain. Only being listened to these guys for the first time in the last 2 weeks, and it's not been consistent. Like I started last week, but with everything I do in my boring
We
ass
got
life,
lives, man. Yeah.
we got lives, so I wasn't able to get into the nitty gritty of it, but I like what I heard. Like I told you guys, I like Steam Breather from Emperor of Sand. In general,
yeah.
I like that Crack the Sky album. Leviathan, I still am not too great of. I was listening to it again today, and it's all right. But
Well, see, and that answers your own question from off air. Like that, I mean, that's why I chose Leviathan first, because imagine go listen to Remission, and imagine that's when I was like, hey, you got to listen to this one first. And
Right.
you would have been like,
that would have been a lot more off-putting, I think.
by the time you got through Leviathan, you're going to be like, I don't know if I like these guys. I know
see
your
your
sensibilities
choices.
a little bit, so that's why I kind of started,
Mm.
but I can't make a Mastodon playlist without Leviathan.
Oh
They
no,
literally play Blood and Thunder at every show. Like it's an iconic song.
No, I mean it's a cool album, but yeah, I didn't really start liking what I heard till probably about Crack the Sky.
Mm.
Emperor of Sand, I really did, and then I like the Cold Dark Places EP.
Mm.
The newer one, Hush and Grim, I don't really know what I think about that one. That's the one I listened to the least, so kind
Yeah.
of expected. But even still, my listen through, not too sure how I feel about that one. But they're
Yeah.
definitely somebody I want to dig into a lot more. But yeah, this 2 weeks wasn't even enough to, because like I mean their albums are pretty long. It feels like, but not in a bad way.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they're great guitar work. Like I thought they were a lot older than they were.
Yeah.
Because the pictures of them, like you guys said, they look like old guys. Like I've seen some pictures, and it's like from 2005, and I'm like, damn, these guys are definitely on Metallica's age or something like that. But no, I think they're pretty sweet this first go around, and I'll definitely be checking a little more into them.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think I remember hearing a story back during the Leviathan days. Brent, I think, he was still working. One of them, I think, Bill was a bartender. Brent was working on a construction crew, and then in between all that shit, they're like touring for Leviathan, which is a huge breakout album for them.
That's
So
crazy. That's
yeah, I
crazy.
mean,
Doing all
they've
that.
had to make it work, and they really have. And I love that it's the same lineup all the way through. I'm sure, as with anyone who's a real person, there's been, conflict within the band, but I love how they make it work, and they've been together this whole time. It's awesome.
I think it's sweet the change off in vocalists, because like it
Yeah,
makes
some of the bands where like you don't get to hear everybody sing. It's like the Eagles or something like that.
yeah. I don't know if I could really speak to that. I don't know if it's each individual person.
I didn't think about that when I said I was like, shit, he didn't know who that is, dude.
But listening to these albums, I don't know if it's one person per album or they all jump in and out. But it
No,
seems
they all do take on singing duties.
that's what I was thinking. But I've been wrong before. I thought Devil Wears Prada was a 3 singer band. So I was hella wrong. But anyways, no, it's interesting because throughout all these albums, I get these different feels from older bands, and the thing in my head when I thought these guys were an older group, I was like, oh yeah, they've been around since probably Pink Floyd. That's why it's kind of got some of them, like his singing has this kind of Pink Floyd sound to it.
I was gonna say Hushed and Grim has some Pink Floyd parts. Like there's synthesizer parts that sound straight pulled out of Welcome to the Machine, and I'm
That's
cool
what
with
I
it.
mean.
Freaking love it.
So
Dude.
I was like, so that kind of messed my mind up into thinking they were that old. so like, you know, they're like making music of the time and like shit
So
like that.
funny.
But it sounds great. But even it doesn't change my mind on them knowing that they're, you know, from this decade, the 2000s, not the 80s.
Yeah. They're definitely a newer band, I guess you could say, but they're still 23 years old at this point, or 25 because they started in 2000, so that's still quite the journey.
That's a long time, but man, I'm still stuck in thinking 1970 was like 30, 40 years ago.
For me, Bont also got me into Mastodon. And then maybe like a year later, we saw them live with BT Bam when he still lived here, which was pretty cool. And that's the only time I've seen them live, but I remember it being a really fucking great show, especially them. And I was a big fan of that song Oblivion at the time, and I fucking lost my shit when they played that song live because I still really like that song, even when we went back through this playlist and I was listening to everything. That song still made my like standout list. I don't know why. It's just such a badass song. It's like thunderous. One thing I would describe Mastodon as is a wall of sound, and I'll throw that on some bands because the production is so tight and they sound so with it through every song transition, and like, you know, everything they intend to do is highly intentional, and that's one thing I like about them. You know, you can tell they're very calculated. There's not a lot of accidents with them. They're just riff masters, as Brandon had said the other day, and I completely agreed with that. Like, they are
for sure,
just riff masters, and chorus wise too. Like, their
big
choruses
riffs.
are fucking big riffs, and the choruses are just also really well constructed. And it's hard to write interesting choruses in progressive metal because you're wanting to cram so much musical influence in there. So when you get to that point, you're like, shit, are my hooks going to be good? And Mastodon is one of those bands that just nails it pretty much every goddamn time. Like, track after track, they hit it. And I don't know how to really pronounce his name. It's a wild ass name. But one thing I wanted to bring up about Mastodon is one of the producers for not a lot of their albums, but Once More Around the Sun and the Cold Dark Place EP is either produced or co-produced by Nick Rekhuzliak, I think is his name. But he did a lot of production for like Foo Fighters, and one of the best Deftones albums is actually produced by him. And he did Coheed and Cambria and Rush and Alice in Chains. So he's been around the block, and you can hear it on those albums, just the way he tones the guitars, and like, he's really badass at that. And I think it's smart of them to reuse producers because they do that multiple times throughout their career. Crack the Sky is produced by Brendan O'Brien, who's also another progressive rock kind of king in the production world. And then they work with him again years later, and he's the co-producer for that Cold Dark Place with Nick. So that's pretty interesting. And I wanted to highlight that because I always look up producers and shit when we go into this stuff.
Yeah, well, Cold Dark Place is, I think, B-sides, I guess they would be called, or outtakes from Once More Around the Sun.
That makes perfect sense.
I think the first 3 songs are from Once More Around the Sun recording, and the last song is from the Emperor of Sand recording sessions.
Okay. Yeah, so that makes perfect sense. Hell yeah. Because, he produced Emperor of Sand, so it's the two of them on the one. So that does explain a lot on that, for sure. And then conceptually, I love that about progressive rock bands, and the concepts that Mastodon throws on their albums is totally badass. Writing an entire album about Moby Dick and making it badass, that's how you do that right there. That's how you do that. But yeah, so they've been around for a while with me as well. I'm not as into them as even Danny or Brandon at this point, though. I mean, they come up every once in a while on playlists for me, and they're definitely progressive rock that I appreciate and respect, but I think those guys are much bigger fans than I am of this band. But I do understand why they love them for sure. I mean, when we did the re-listen today, I did it right before the episode, basically, right before we jumped on for wrestling, and then the episode. I had just finished that playlist, and then I listened to the couple that weren't on the playlist, so pretty fresh in my brain. And yeah, wall of sound. That's what I wanted to come into the episode saying. Whenever I say that about a band, it's always a really good thing because a lot of bands have a hard time maintaining that shit, and Mastodon ain't one of those bands. Absolutely
And
not.
I just love how they've grown as musicians over the years. Every album sounds like not only that they've gotten better with their instruments, but just the production, the wall of sound, as you say, everything is always improved upon. It might not be better for your tastes, but they're always trying to one up themselves, and I love that. And yeah, they've gone over such a journey of sound over their years, and it's pretty cool to see their evolution.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Well, let's get into the lyrical content of these guys. What are your guys' thoughts on that? What kind of stuff do you take away from it? I wrote down some lines that I really liked here and there, but kind of wanted to pick your guys' brains on not only lyric placement, but we talked about the choruses and stuff and how they really just knock it out of the park in that regard. So,
Well, they've got a couple of albums, or one's an album, one's in an LP, right?
Or EP.
Or
EP.
EP, yeah, for their tour manager, who
Well, Hushed and
passed away.
Grim,
Yeah,
is dedicated to
yeah,
that
he
hymn.
passed away, and so I think the lyrics on those albums are pretty sentimental, especially to them.
Mm-hmm.
More or less, I noticed it more or less on Hushed and Grim, just by kind of listening to, like, kind of the pain and sorrow in a couple of those tracks. There's a couple of slower ones where, like, you can kind of tell that it's a part of their grieving, as Brandon's said numerous times before, and I think that's really cool. Like, you feel like a lot of these bands always have issues with managers, or labels, or people that are trying to tell them what to do, how the sound should be, blah 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 blah. It seemed like they had a really good connection with this guy, enough to where it impacted some of their songwriting and stuff. So I think that that's really cool. But yeah, just the whole conceptualization of Crack the Sky, it's so just like a cohesive one through, and you don't really find that a whole lot in a lot of bands. Coheed and Cambria is another one that comes to my mind when I think of bands like that, but that'll be for another episode, obviously. But yeah, I love that they all sing. I think that shows how diverse that their sound can be, because they all kind of have a different voice. Brand's usually got most of the vocals down. The other guys are a little bit more grungy and more raw, like guttural, I guess you could say, on certain tracks and things like that, and the screaming and whatnot, if there is any. And I like that too about them. It's very minimal screaming. There's some in there, but it's not like every single song where, like, you couldn't put it on in the car and be like, oh my god, this is another one where he's just gonna scream his head off. So I like that about them. But yeah, lyric wise, their lyrics are pretty good, and I'm usually not that person, which I've said on previous episodes before, but I do appreciate their lyrics a little bit more, maybe because I am a little bit more favorable to this band.
Yeah, for sure. It's important too, like when a band is conceptual, it's important to see what kind of story they're telling and how you're piecing it together as it goes along. 'Cause sometimes bands are not great at being consistent with that, but again, Mastodon's not one of those bands. They're consistent through the whole album. Like Between the Berry and Me, same thing, or Coheed, like you mentioned, when they're following a concept, they hit the bullet points perfectly. You know what you're listening to. You're not lost. You're not like what are we talking about here? Mastodon's not. They're really good at that. So because I was reading the lyrics along this time, which is something I've never done for Mastodon, and I was just like, oh damn, that's a sick line, and that's a sick line, and like, you know, and then when you know what their albums are about, each one, and you tie in those things to the album titles and the concepts, it's kind of mind blowing.
Yeah, I don't know any of that, but my kind of thoughts on when I listen to this, like, I mean, obviously we know the story of Moby Dick, so that's what that one is. But Crack the Sky, That one, I don't know. It's got this really somber tone, like somebody's died or someone's gonna die, but like in a real like I don't know, something like that to that degree. It was really a change from the first one
Yeah.
lyrically that I felt, because the first one I don't know. It's the story of Moby Dick, I assume, so I didn't listen as closely. But when we moved on, I started listening a little bit more, and then like Emperor of Sand, that one just feels like it's another tragedy, but in a different way. I don't know how to explain it. Like someone's been cast out. I don't know. That's just what I got from it. So it's pretty.
Yeah.
Seems like some serious tones from them, and it's pretty cool. Like I said, I got to take more time to dive in, because it's kind of like scratching the surface. Kind of these first couple listen throughs.
Yeah, I mean, you're kind of right on point without even trying to be. One of the things I really like about them and respect about them is a lot of their music is kind of written in a way where they're dealing with shit in their real life. Like Crack the Sky, you got it. Bronze, I think sister committed suicide when he was in high school. Her name was Sky, and so they called it Crack the Sky to be like a dedication to her. But also the story of that album goes so much deeper, because it's about like a paraplegic dude who gets like psychic powers and travels into the astral plane, and then he meets Rasputin's astral projection up there, and then he goes down and has adventures with Rasputin, and it's fucking
Did I
sick
miss?
as fuck.
What the fuck did I miss there? Holy shit!
Oh man, yeah, we saw that kind of all unfold in a visual, like video
It's
montage
crazy.
that went along with the album as they were playing it. But yeah, that kind of is reminiscent of from what I vaguely remember. We had a few libations for sure before that, so.
All right. I love that word, libation.
Just trying to keep it PG, yo. All right, we were hammered, we were fucked up. Like I'm not gonna come on.
I still love it. I love it, libation.
uh yeah, and I mean, Emperor of Sand is also a lot of the members of the band have dealt with family members that have gotten cancer and stuff, and that's an album where they're kind of dealing with that shit, so every album has its themes and stuff like that. And I've listened to so many of their albums so many times, and I kind of can see where they're personal for them. It's a sweet thing, because not a lot of people have those outlets, and to kind of share that journey with us is it's not only, can only be hard, but it's really cool. And I mean, a couple of standout songs for me, Word to the Wise, Skeleton of Splendor off of Hush and Grim, and The Last Baron, Crack the Sky. I mean, I could go on and on. I love all that shit. Roots Remain is maybe one of my favorite solos of all time. I think it's a really passionate solo. You can hear
Glenn in that song, his singing in that song is like kind of like angelic, with that like bell dinging in the background. Like it's,
Yeah.
oh, dude, that song is sweet.
But yeah,
Interesting. Yeah. And that's the beauty of this band too, is the range of emotions felt through the all 8 albums is completely different. I don't think they do a whole lot of like retreading or beating a dead horse. They do a great job of moving on and presenting you with different things as the listener, which is what keeps them fresh. And they do remain fresh album after album. I mean, you expect them to be kind of a band that could be potentially stale, because that happens to so many progressive rock bands where you're just like, they really haven't stepped outside their own box. But that's again not Mastodon. Like I could do all the boxes here where Mastodon doesn't fail in a lot of ways that other progressive rock bands do, and they're not one of them, because and I expected them to, honestly. It'd been a little while since I took the journey of listening to each album. I've been collecting them here and there recently on vinyl and trying to get them. And I was thinking like, but by the time I'm getting to the later ones, I'm probably going to be sick of this playlist. But like I wasn't. And That's a good thing, because that does happen with some bands where you're just like, all right, I'm kind of fatigued here. I'm done with it. Mastodon is not one of them, so I appreciate them in that regard, and I'm happy we did this for that reason, because I added a whole bunch of new songs to my progressive rock playlist from them, and I also made a Mastodon artist playlist, which I didn't yet have on my shit.
Nice.
So yeah,
Hey, you know
pretty
me,
good.
man. It's hard for me to get past most. If a band goes past 4 albums, you might lose me past that 4th one.
I have a rough time too, keeping up with shit like that. They just fall off. I fall off really bad, or I'm just not into it.
Or when they take like long breaks, like you know, I think we said this about Smashing Pumpkins. They took that like long hiatus, and then when that new album came out, I think out of the three of us that did it, because Brandon wasn't here yet, I liked that album. You know, like I was like, well, I don't know, maybe they needed a break. Like this really, it sounded better than than you two thought. So I think it has a lot to do with that too. So yeah.
It's possible. I mean, it's unpopular in this group, I'm sure, but Tool took forever to complete Fear Inoculum, and I just don't feel like that album holds up after the wait. And they're a progressive metal band, so I think they fall into that as well. Now, again, does that album suck? No, but it doesn't do a lot to progress Tool in their signature sounds and things like that. It's kind of stagnant. It doesn't sound. It could easily just be a sequel to 10,000 Days.
Yeah, it's 10,000 Days Part 2.
Yeah, right.
Exactly.
And it
exactly.
only has this,
Yeah.
really like bring that album out, And there's a couple
Numa
of
is I mean, all of those songs fucking bang live. I will say that right now, dude.
Yeah. And that's though, kind of going back to Mastodon, like I was saying earlier, like the few times I've seen them, like there's never been an issue where I'm like, man, they really didn't sound good live. Like it's always been crisp. It's always been like good. Our favorite guy when Brandon and I have seen them is what's his name? The touring keyboard player.
Yeah, like Rasta Noguera, I think they just
This guy straight up wears a top hat. I thought Slash was out there for a second, but
he's just got good vibes. He's playing.
He's like kind of like the honorary member of the band that doesn't really get the credit I think he deserves. I don't really know how much he does at the live show, but I'm glad he's there every time I've seen him. So.
Well, I think a lot of those keyboard parts come alive in the recording sessions. That's why he doesn't get credit really, and they just need that guy when they tour. So who knows? I'm not a musician. I don't know how this shit works. I just like the cool sounds.
Just likes the cool sounds. That's a good segue into the music section of Mastodon, which I'm also excited to talk about. One of the things they do to keep their sound fairly fresh is they experiment with a shitload of different guitar tunings. D standard is one that they use a lot, but they also use drop C, which bands like Chevelle and Slipknot and those bands will use those tones to try to get either deeper tones or heaviness that maybe other bands can't get in standard tuning. And then they'll even do crazy shit like drop their guitars to A tuning, which is similar to D, but you don't need the 6th string.
Oh, what songs? I see. This is all shit that is above my pay grade.
You get paid.
Well,
what the fuck?
Yo,
the song Oblivion is in drop D, so everything's down half a step, or down a full step, which is pretty cool.
Interesting.
And then Steam Breather is in D standard, so it's just the top string that's changed. But and then Eyes of the Serpent is in an A tuning, which is a very bizarre tuning to use as a guitar player. So I started to learn some of the songs last night just because I was like, man, that riff is sick, and that riff is sick too. So I would like
big
took
riffs,
the notes and and they are they're great at it. Shit, I had to grab 2 separate guitars and tune them into separate tunings just so I could keep trading back and forth without like aggravating myself. So
you had one show though, or what?
yeah, you just gotta do that, dude.
Get that on the like, hold on, guys, I'm gonna do the harmony really quick.
But yeah, I mean, and they're really heavy. They're consistently heavy, which is something I love about any band, so they keep it steady. But when they do those slow songs, which is, they're kind of few and far between, but when they do them, they're fucking, again, there's still just a wall of sound, and I never feel that way about slower music or like ballady type shit, but not with Mastodon. Like that, they're very consistent no matter what they choose to do. And same thing with their drummer. I was in awe of their drummer a lot too. He really gives me Coheedy vibes sometimes in his fills, and
Ron is such a cool guy too.
yeah, I bet they all seem like pretty cool dudes. I watched a bunch of interviews with them where people asked them about the new albums here and there as each year would go by, and they wouldn't give a ton of information because they all seem kind of shy or timid sometimes too, which is weird. But I watched at least 10 interviews between the last episode we did and this episode just to get a feel for the band, and they seem real humble. They seem like they're not fame.
I mean, like I said, one of them was working on a construction crew when their biggest album to date almost was out.
That's sick too, though, because they're the working man's metal, basically. There you go. They're not super pretentious or up their ass about their music, which is good because that's also a very common trope in the progressive metal world. Maynard.
I mean, and back to their live shows too. I mean, I saw them recently at the Kia Forum, and that was one of the sweetest setups I've ever seen because they were playing with Gojira, so it's just big, chuggy riffs and fucking awesomeness, and the stage was set up with like a big LED pagoda. It was so cool, and obviously the light show, and they had flames shooting up and stuff. I was like, is this Rammstein or? But like, and I was on the floor for it, and I was back by the sound, because that's my favorite spot, right in front of the sound guy, and I could feel the heat from those things. So I couldn't even imagine being on stage with those flame spitters and
a little crispy up on stage, probably, dude.
yeah.
That shit's dangerous, man. It looks cool, but next thing you know, you get a little Michael Jackson episode up there, dude.
Yeah.
A lot of bands are pretty well versed in doing that kind of shit these days. Kiss they did that shit their entire career. Just that big showmanship aspect of the band, which is something I always like, and there will be people that complain about it, but it's like, hey man, if you can pull off your music and that kind of a visual show at the same time, you're winning. There's
Right.
no way around that.
I mean, they make the price of admission worth it, and I appreciate
100%.
that. And
yeah,
you can say what you will about Tool or any of their live performances, they also do the same thing. Their live show is so worth the price of admission.
It really is. And it sucks because, especially nowadays, it doesn't matter what concert you go to, tickets can be astronomical, and it's like you're hoping that you're paying for, some good quality shit. And I've been disappointed before, but I've never had that issue with this band or Tool for that matter.
Me neither. I've seen Mastodon so many times. Another awesome show, Mastodon and Primus at the Greek Theater. That was amazing.
Hell yeah.
I've seen them so many times with Coheed up in MOBA in Portland. That was Moda, whatever it's called. That was incredible.
Hell yeah. I opened for him. It was like, which is like,
every time I die.
Weird, for them to be opening, but that was a sweet ass show.
Yeah. Great live band. Go see them. Even if you're not really into metal, it's a great show.
Great visual show. Yeah, they use a lot of lasers and shit, and yeah.
Well, Bon, as their biggest fan here, I imagine you are. What do you take away from them musically? Like, how do you feel about the music?
I love them. I love the riffs. I love the solos. Like I said earlier, I think their evolution over time is something to that other bands should strive for. Don't always put yourself in a box and just stick with what you know. I think every one of their albums is so unique while maintaining its own kind of Mastodon-ness, But I don't really have a lot to say about like chords and tuning and stuff like that. That's just not, I don't know stuff like that. But in terms of sound, I love it. I literally listen to these guys probably every day. I mean, I mostly listen to one playlist that I have, and these guys like are on it. So they're one of probably 25 bands that I listen to on a weekly basis. So, awesome. Musically, fantastic. They get my seal of approval. And I can't.
That's big, man. Your seal of approval.
Yeah, I can't speak highly enough about them.
That's
I wish
crazy.
the listeners out there need to
We
know
have an
what the
actual
Bont seal of
stamp.
approval means. It's
Yeah.
Little
not
did
to
you
be
know,
taken
it took
lightly.
me 2 years to become his best friend. You know, I had to try out, and it was very hard.
Application, multiple interviews.
Yep. You tried to sleep with me now.
Oh,
What about you, Danny? What musically? What do they do for you?
My boyfriend over here just took the words out of my mouth. No, I mean, as a musician myself, and I've discussed this before, I'm huge on drums. I'm a drummer. I always, appreciate, a good drummer when you hear it. And Braun, whatever. He's nothing flashy, like he's not your Neil Peart, your Danny Carey, these very technical drummers and stuff like that. He has a technicality about him, but it almost seems like he's an every guy's drummer, every man drummer, whatnot. And he sings on top of it, which that's just another cherry on top for me. I always appreciate a drummer that can sing.
is that hard to do?
It's very hard to do. Oh man, I used to wear Britney Spears mic, or I would have a setup mic when I played in a band in high school. And yeah, it's hard because I'm singing and I'm trying to keep my voice at a certain pitch or tone and remember lyrics, while at the same time trying to keep a little beat going. So yeah, no, it was difficult, but I wish I had known about this band a long time ago, like probably, back when Brandon was listening to him, because this would have been one of these, I would be playing this in my garage. That's how I pretty much taught myself how to play the drums. I would just put earphones in and just start playing with it, and I just had a natural tune for hearing music. So musicianship wise, I have a little bit more appreciation than probably he does. Not to take away from him, but I appreciate the drums a lot. The guitars are what sells me with this band. Whether it's the squeaky solos or the harmony between the two of them, or the tuning, definitely you can tell on certain songs. It's so just very like dark and like ominous and gothy and whatnot. And so I appreciate that. And yeah, the singing, you can't deny having every single guy sing in the band, let alone having different voices and different styles of singing, I guess you could say, whether that's screaming or being more guttural or background vocals or whatnot. So, no, musician wise, they're one of the very few bands that I can say all around I like what every single guy brings to the table.
Yeah, absolutely. And to go back to what you're saying about the drumming, any drummer worth their salt, will tell you that being an intricate drummer is something you master after you're able to master staying in the pocket. And the Mastodon drummer
Is he a quarterback?
He's the no. I mean, it's just a term. It's a term we use in drumming as well. It's like you're the timekeeper, so you're keeping the whole band on track, and if it's hard for a lot of bands. That's why people, whether you love or hate the Beatles, like people will say like Ringo Starr is a shitty drummer, but not really. He's just a pocket drummer. He keeps the time perfectly for them to do what they need to do. And the Mastodon's the same way, like and a lot of drummers will tell you it's a lot harder to maintain that consistency in the pocket than it is to do all this crazy intricate shit. Because, as long as you can keep mild time, you can pull off intricacies. But if you're bad at keeping time, then, that shit isn't really going to do you any good. It's just going to be flashy for the sake of flash, which, you just, that's what's great about him. And listening to the albums, he also kind of reminded me of the Black Sabbath drummer a lot, Bill Ward. He's just good. Like I said, he keeps that time and he keeps that pocket clean, just like a quarterback would, I guess.
Not exactly.
Fucking football terms, but music terms is all I'm into.
Clean,
All right, Rex. So, being the newcomer of the group, how do you feel about them musically, the musicianship?
Again, I can't say shit about drums, but
That's
I
I
can say
say to the drums.
no, they're
There's
sweet,
other
but I
shit,
just don't know. I just don't know, like what you would know, Danny, or you, practical. But no, as far as what I think, these guys are great, and they like. I'll be honest, the first time I listened to Leviathan, I didn't really hear what they were saying at all, but the rest of the music was great. And my next listen through, I actually was able to hear what they were saying. Not here, but I'd listen more. But their guitars honestly tell more of a story to me than what they sing. Like I don't. Brent and Bill,
Brent
what
and Bill
they're
are the guitar
yeah, the
players.
lead guitar rhythm, they're just real concise with everything they do, and it's so it's fucking sweet. Like I said, I gotta listen to it more, but every song you don't realize how long it is, even if it's their 11-12 minute, because it's just you're on a ride. You're just, especially with their guitar, and you're just on this whole ride with them musically and how it changes, but it stays the same. Like I don't know, it's real great. That's all I can say right now.
Great, guys.
That's
It's
fucking great. It's
great.
just, it's a hoot.
It's
It's a
a
real
real
hoot listening to these guys.
Hell
No,
yeah.
but I'm excited to dive in more. They actually don't have that many albums, so it's really easy to kind of get into these guys. And this being a jump start, yeah, I'll definitely be diving in a lot more to these guys. They're really sweet. They're like a more metally sound than I'm used to as far as their singing and stuff. Like it's a different type of metal for me. But I really like these guys how they present it, because none of the music like this, like when you talk about Tool, these guys and some others, that was not where my friend group kind of went in high school. Like we had the friend group who listened to all that, but we were the ones who listened to more, the emo stuff and all that. So that's what we were all showing each other. So that's why I never heard a lot of these guys. Like I've heard of them, but I never knew anything they've done. So it's really cool. And I kind of wish, kind of like Danny was saying, that I would have maybe listened a little bit more, because I know we're going to do Tool. And I'll be honest, I don't know nothing about Tool. Not a damn thing. Oh, wait. No, I don't know a damn thing. So,
one or two songs, but
I probably know some songs, but I wouldn't be able to tell you. So, like I said, it'll just be cool to dive into this since my friend group never did. So I'm like super late to this party.
Better late than never.
Yeah, but no, these guys are sick. Like, I'm pretty stoked.
Hell yeah. That's the cool thing about this, is we'll all be stepping outside our comfort zone sometimes and jumping into shit like that. So it's cool if you discover new shit. Let's talk about their impact and legacy. So to precursor that a little bit, I don't really see people talk about Mastodon all that often. I don't.
A true metalhead, that someone that listens to metal on a consistent basis, for sure. But yeah, when you're talking, just like normal rock music or stuff like that people will listen to, like the band's name never really does come up.
Yeah, which is weird because I like to surf all the subgenres and on Reddit and things like that, and just see what people say, and I'll see them brought up occasionally. If somebody makes like a top 10 list or something, you might see them at the bottom of that list, if with progressive metal or progressive rock, but they're never, they haven't reached that kind of mainstream success where everyone knows who they are, like a household name like Tool. Because we bring up Tool a lot, but it's just a good comparison because there's not that many bands in that genre that break to the mainstream where people love. All the best ones are still moderate successes, like Coheed and Mastodon and Porcupine Tree.
Yeah, I mean, and it might surprise some of you, but this is one of the more mainstream bands that I listen to. So, which is, they're kind of just barely mainstream. I mean, they won a Grammy, which I think is huge for. I mean, if you think that thing is important, which I mean, it's recognition on a big scale. So I do think it's kind of important. And they're a band that you wouldn't think would get that sort of recognition, right? They I mean, Metallica's won Grammys and stuff, and I've heard Rex compare Mastodon to Metallica, but these guys can be really, really heavy. Probably more so than I think Metallica can be.
Absolutely.
And that's kind of breaking the mold for an award like that. And I mean, we see it more and more nowadays, like bands like Spirit Box are getting in there, and Poppy and other cool stuff like that, which is cool. I think it helps it. They got a cute girl at the front of their band, but that's not really here nor there,
Yeah,
because
Courtney,
there's just
that's my
good bands
girl.
either way. It could be a guy singing and they'd still be awesome. Probably not, but whatever. You know what I mean? They're bands not because there's a woman at the front, and that's they're just good bands. But yeah, it's cool to see that kind of stuff and kind of this kind of music getting a little bit more mainstream recognition.
I agree, especially in the year that they're winning it, like 2017, I think is when they won one of them.
Mm.
Like, I don't know. To me, it seems like the mainstream, especially era, has just been dominated by hip hop, some country. And that's kind of where everyone's recognizing everybody as hip, is new album of the year, best new album and stuff. So I think it's great. And it's important for kind of the genre itself to stay alive, to see that they're being noticed and getting these awards.
Mm-hmm.
Because, I mean, these days it's a lot harder for people. I mean, it's easier than ever, but it seems a lot harder than ever for a group of people in a garage to become famous these days, and especially in the type of genre they're in, to get recognition for what they've done.
Right.
So it's just, I think winning stuff like this is what helps inspire people to still do those garage bands and turn into something possibly like this, like Mastodon.
Yeah, absolutely. And the Grammy is about as mainstream of an award as you can get for a rock band or any artist. So that's good recognition for them. And they have sold a decent amount of records as well. So you can tell that they're getting out there and people are finally kind of catching on to them. Some bands like this will catch their stride a lot longer or a lot later in their career. And while they did get that bump, with Leviathan back then, they've been able to maintain up to the point of 2007 winning that Grammy, or 2017, excuse me. So they've been able to do that in a more relevant way in modern day, which is impressive, because since 2010, the radio waves and everything has been largely dominated by hip hop, like you're saying. So to get to that point still in 2017 is a huge accomplishment, and it'll definitely help shape their legacy and their impact on music overall. I would like to see them really break out, though, like have that one album that just blows everybody away. Everybody's talking about it. And it's funny because when I listened to Hushed and Grim, I was like, damn, this could be that album. But it was already 4 years ago, and it just didn't catch like I thought it would with everyone. But it's too bad, because goddamn, that album is very masterpiece-ish, I should say.
I love that album.
I mean, I could say that about a lot of their albums. I really love Crack the Sky and Leviathan too, but Hushed and Grim might be my favorite album by them. But we'll get to that. We'll get to that once we start breaking the albums down, which we didn't do every one of them like you guys were talking about for you guys, because you never want these episodes to be 3 hours like Metallica was. Got to start trimming them down at some point. We could talk about all these bands we love all day, every day.
Oh,
but
yeah.
Well, let's start doing that. Let's start talking about the albums we listened to in preparation for this episode. Leviathan. What are your guys' thoughts on that album that maybe we haven't said already? Obviously, besides the Moby Dick concept, what about Leviathan is just a standout to you?
That opening track, man.
Blood and Thunder.
Blood and Thunder, yeah.
I mean, like Brandon was saying earlier, it's usually their last song, which is kind of weird. An opening song to an album being, the last song that they play. But it's so, in your face, that beginning, distorted, like, guitar, just the da-da-da-da. You're like, oh, shit, is this going to get going? And then Brand just comes slapping skin real quick, and you just get right into it. Like, they start singing right away, and, like, it kind of, like, makes you pucker up a little bit, You're like, oh, shit, I'm in for a ride, But it's overall, it's one of maybe like 3 or 4 that I say consistently every single song is good. But to me, some of the ones that stand out, I Am Ahab is a really good one. Blood and Thunder, obviously. What am I thinking of? I think there is a track, Leviathan, on there too.
Megalodon.
Megalodon. That's what I was saying. One of those mythical things. Oh, it was Sea Beast. Sorry.
Sea Beast is fucking
Sea
sick.
Beast is great. But yeah, this was a good starting point, especially for Rex, who doesn't listen to them at all. It would have been rough if we had done Remission first, because that one is a little premature, if you will. Not really. I mean, I still kind of like it, but it's nothing compared to some of the later ones that they start throwing down. But yeah,
for sure.
Right. I do really, really like this album, though. I think it's one of their better ones for sure.
I agree. It's a monster of an album. It was the first album that I actually bought by them, and it holds up. Almost 20 years later, and you can say that about pretty much every one of their albums after they passed. But Leviathan, if I could compare it to another artist, like breakout album, something like Stand Up and Scream from Asking Alexandria, to maybe pull from an example that we haven't used before, Leviathan is kind of that album because it got me into the band and wanted to see where they're going to go next. Unlike Asking Alexandria, though, they're able to maintain and keep being good after the fact. So that's, there's always that entry point album, and I think Leviathan, like Danny is saying, is the perfect starting point for someone who's new to the band. So I personally recommend Leviathan if anyone hasn't heard it already. Again, taking the concept of Moby Dick and making it into an album and nailing it is pretty masterful work. So if you're into concepts, like I said, just give that one an honest listen. Read it, read the lyrics as you listen to the album and let it kind of just like encapsulate you in the story. That's sometimes the way to go with this music. And then you kind of understand it better, even musically, because you're like, oh, I see their intentions of where they're going and shit with the concepts, and it's kind of like an opus for them. That's how I feel about Leviathan, though. What about you fellas?
I'll keep it short and sweet. This album's okay.
Okay,
I liked it. I liked it. I liked it, but if I was to start anybody off, I probably would have started them off on Crack the Sky, because that one's right after, or I think it's right after. But
there's one in between them. There's Blood Mountain.
One in between. Yeah,
Blood Mountain. Well, this one's the next one after that, I guess. But Leviathan was okay. I'm not really. I don't really care about Moby Dick. Like I give zero shits about that at all. Which, I mean, for a lot of people, it's cool. I get the actual story of it. It's not really about the whale and all that. It's about his ego and something like that. But I don't care.
Well,
so
this album and Gojira has another album that's about whales. They have been dubbed whalecore.
Whalecore. See, I think that's sick. That's a sick name.
That is
Whalecore.
not sick.
That is
no, that's awesome. I love these. Dude, Gojira and Mastodon are whalecore. How is that not sick? Both
that's
of them
hella sick,
dude.
Right? That's
how
awesome.
I feel about
whalecore
these subgenres. Get out of here,
dude. But this one's sweet. If you go whale watching, this is what you should put on.
And literally, Gojira has donated money to save the whales, so that's awesome.
I don't know. People go whale watching or something. I don't know what people do, man. People watch weird stuff. But either way, this album just didn't hit for me. It's got some cool songs. I didn't really pay attention to much of them because I was just listening to a lot of it at work, so I didn't have time to just keep pulling out my phone. But once we got past this album, that's when I really started to kind of opened up for me. But this one isn't bad. I don't want to say that at all. It's just so far in my listens, this one's not that great for me.
All right,
wow.
That's fair.
All right, yeah, I didn't expect
for me,
that, but yeah.
For me, I love it, and a couple of my favorites are Sea Beast, Aqua Dementia, and Hearts Alive. Obviously, Blood and Thunder too, but I would say those are probably my 4 favorites. And I love the themes and the riffs. Again, always with the riffs are awesome. And,
Riffage.
Yeah, I love it.
Big riffs.
Big riffs.
Yeah, big riffs.
And I love the artwork.
The artwork is a consistent thing with their album covers too.
Their
all
albums
pretty
are
epic.
sick.
Yeah.
Whalecore, hell yeah, that's sick.
Get whaled.
Let's march on to Crack the Sky then. Crack the Sky is also a really great album to me personally. Again, I mentioned Oblivion earlier. I just learned how to play that song last night for the first time, which is crazy because I've loved that song since I heard it. But I figured, hey, fuck it, we're gonna do this. So let me see what they're doing guitar wise. That's a standout track for me. I love the song "Crack the Sky" too, and "Ghosts of Karelia."
Corellia.
Karelia. That's a really great song. It's a great album, honestly, and I think it one ups itself from Leviathan. I think it kind of that between that and Blood Mountain, they definitely grow from Leviathan, and you can tell.
Yeah, I mean, Blood Mountain almost feels like the bridge between Leviathan and Crack the Sky, really.
Absolutely, yeah. Which is good that you picked it the way you did because we get to see kind of a bigger jump between the sound from Leviathan and Crack the Sky, which is a good approach. But if you haven't listened to Blood Mountain out there, obviously
Blood Mountain will
please
grab
do
you
so.
by the balls from the first song.
Yeah, it really will. It's the first album where I felt like when I was listening to it, I was like, this is the album that made me think of the Wall of Sound thing was Blood Mountain, but it just consistently continues, and so. But
that's
yeah,
that Whalecore.
That's how. God damn it! That's how I feel about Crack the Sky. But tell me what you guys think. What y'all think of the Sky Kraken?
Daniel?
Crack the Sky. No, this seeing this live definitely makes me appreciate it much more than I did, just free listening to it before seeing it. But I would say this is probably their best album. If somebody had to, put a gun to my head and say pick their best one, is it my favorite? No, it's their best one. I think just as a whole, I think the conceptuality of it keeps it, up in that tier of greatness, so to speak. It's very storytelling-esque, like Brandon was saying earlier about those mythical names he was using. I forget already.
Rasputin is actually not a mythical name.
Okay, well, whatever. I'm sorry, okay?
This man is a wizard.
I was in session, prof. Okay? But yeah, this is probably their best album. It sounds really, really good, and it's great to see live, that's for sure.
Hell yeah.
Dude, this would be sick to see live in its entirety.
Well, it has a whole movie that goes with it.
Yeah.
They still need to watch that, Brandon.
Yeah.
I took it out of the case so that I could watch it.
Didn't you, bastard? We were going to watch it together.
I haven't watched it yet.
Okay, cool. Sorry, guys.
Well, Rex, how did Crack the Sky grab you? Since you didn't really like Leviathan as much.
I like this one a lot more, starting off obviously with Oblivion, but I like the sound of this, and like I said, from what I thought about the lyrics and stuff earlier, and then what Brandon told me, it kind of makes sense with the album. I didn't know any of them had, suicide in their family or whatever happened, which is you can kind of tell in this album. And you said her name was Sky, so that kind of explains even more, because Crack the Sky is probably one of my favorites off this album. I got to listen to it more again since I'm just scratching the surface, and apparently I got to watch or listen to Blood Mountain and watch a movie. So there's a lot I'm missing out on, but no, this
if
one,
you like them that much, yeah,
no, I definitely want to check them out. But this album, I'll definitely be listening to more. The last song on it, which is
I made a playlist of their music videos on YouTube, and I posted it in Discord.
Saw that, and I got to get to that.
Watch that, you'll have a blast.
But no, this album was sweet.
Motherload.
This album was really good. I've again, Wall of Sound's a perfect thing, and Whalecore maybe it's
a Whalecore, dude.
So
whatever, is that a whale sound sonar?
I have no idea.
We are definitely not Whalecore.
I'm not.
That's for damn sure.
I don't know. I'm new to this Whalecore. Give me a break. So no, this album's I like it a lot more than Leviathan. I'll have to check out Blood Mountain, but after Leviathan, I like these guys a lot more.
Hell yeah.
Are you drinking coffee, Brandon?
No water.
Oh, okay. Sorry. I was distracted.
His mind is consumed by what you're drinking.
All right,
For
well,
me,
with that
this
said,
is
yeah.
this is a great album. Definitely like a seminal piece for them. It really should be the starting point for any new listener. And if you like this is when you can kind of, either go forward with them or go backward and see what they sounded like before this. I think everyone is just at such a high level on this album. This is the first album where Braun joins in for vocals, and that really sets it apart, because he is such a good vocalist, and again also plays the drums at the same time, so like crazy. And then this has some of my favorite just transitions, some of like the flighty guitar sounds into just chuggy freaking sounds like a wave of blood coming after you. I don't know. The Last Baron. That's the song I'm talking
Terrifying.
about.
Wave
It's
of blood.
Terrifying.
yeah.
Hell yeah.
These are just some of the crazy images that pop in my head when I listen to music. Anyway, yeah. I really love the last four of this album. Those are my favorite. The first three are great, but from the Czar on, I'm just fully loaded.
Love that. Great.
You guys realize that some of the language you use, they're not going to know what the hell you're talking about,
I
right?
don't give a shit.
That makes it a little bit better.
I know
I'm
exactly
guessing.
what you're talking about. I think that's all that matters.
Hell yeah. All right, well, let's go once more around the sun. Once more round the sun, I should say.
Danny's favorite.
My favorite.
Hell yeah. I think standout tracks for me on this album are the Motherlode, High Road, Asleep in the Deep. Especially Asleep in the Deep. That's probably my favorite song on the album.
Asleep in the Deep is sick.
It's
High
so
Road
fucking
is one
good.
of the dopest riffs of all time.
It is, yeah. It's
And
that
again,
kind of-
Riff.
Yep.
great videos for both High Road and Motherlode.
Oh, dude,
this
I
album,
love this music video.
it's also produced by our buddy Nick that I mentioned earlier in the episode, who also produced my favorite Deftones album, Diamond Eyes. So
Wait, he's
Oh,
our
so-
buddy?
what's that?
He's our buddy? We know him?
That's my segue into not being
Yeah.
able to pronounce his last name. God damn it!
I had coffee with him.
Yeah, I can't. His last name is a fucking nightmare. I'm sorry, but I can't pronounce that shit to save my life. So he produced Diamond Eyes, which is like I said, a great Deftones album, if not my favorite album by them. So I really enjoy the production quality of this album as well, especially like drum wise. They all have a good production, but this one just really stands out and pops. And I really like that about it. I also love the album cover. It's fucking
Cover's so cool.
It's crazy.
No,
Dude. It's fucking, I was looking at it the other day after smoking a bowl. I was listening to this song and I was just like, "What the fuck? I should be on mushrooms for that cover, dude. I'd be freaking out if I was."
Somebody was when they did that one, like
They
on
had to be,
acid.
dude.
They
Had
were
to
looking
be.
at like some bug, and they're like, "Oh fuck!"
I do recommend
Mantis
this
is
album.
crazy.
I recommend this album, and once again, it's got an album in between that we skipped called The Hunter. And again, that's a great album too, and shouldn't be slept on. But Once More Around the Sun is also another one that kind of, it bridges the gap with The Hunter and Crack the Sky into what they do for the
For
next
me,
round.
If you're a Pink Floyd fan, Hushed and Grim. If you're a Led Zeppelin fan, The Hunter.
That's a great assessment. Absolutely, hell yeah,
Very valid. Very valid.
agreed.
Super valid.
Thanks.
You're welcome.
Rex validated it, so it's good to go.
Oh my god.
Well, why don't you tell us what you thought of the album then, Rex? Once More Around the Sun.
This one I kind of glided over.
Ooh,
Wow. That hurts me.
Look, it's nothing personal. Again, I try to fit this in where I can, and I don't remember a time where I stopped to pull out to look at what I was listening to. Not in a bad way, but I've always got a lot going on. So this one I didn't give it the time of day it probably deserves. And again, I'll be jumping into all these guys, but to be honest, I kind of skated through this one. I didn't start really checking my phone again until Emperor of Sand, and then a bit on the EP we threw in there, which was the Cold Dark Place.
Mhm.
Yeah, so no, nothing to say bad about it, but I got nothing. I couldn't tell you one song off it.
You sound
That's very
rich.
disappointing.
Just kidding.
I apologize.
We
Nothing,
can't get to
nothing
everything.
personal.
Yep.
Nothing personal.
Unbelievable, man. Unbelievable.
All right, Danny. Well, if it's your favorite, then you take it away.
There's not a track on here that I skip. I play this one front to back. I've also mentioned this on the pod before. There are very few albums that do this for me, and this one does it. The Mellow dude is one of the best music videos ever made. So the little background for you, these guys are from Atlanta, Georgia. You wouldn't know if you saw them, because, I don't know, I figured they'd be like New York or Chicago or something like that. But no, they're from Atlanta. And so in the music video, they're just kind of playing in this room. And then I think there's a little bit on a stage. And I apparently were frequent visitors to a strip club there. And Atlanta, you know, they're known for their strip clubs. So they hired a bunch of the girls that would always dance for them to dance in the music video. So it's just like heavy metal music with black girls just twerking. It's fucking awesome. It's so good. It's so good. Mother Low, I love that. Ember City is one of my favorites. Chimes at Midnight, dude. I love just the, you know, there's so many of their songs that like give you this like angelic vibe or like this vibe that like you're gonna fly or some shit. Like Brandon was saying, the Wave of Blood. For me, there's like 3 or 4 tracks on here where I'm like, dude, give me some Captain America shitty wings and let me get to flying, dude. Like, where's Mackie? But yeah, this is my favorite Mastodon album. So if I was going to show someone Mastodon for the first time, I would show them this album. Which, not taken away from Crack the Sky, because I still think that's their best one, but this is a good, fun way to get into it because it's kind of a fun album. It doesn't have that like super somber tone throughout. There's a lot of more uplifting songs on this album versus some of the other ones. So yeah, this is if we were doing the ratings, which we don't do anymore, this is a solid 10 out of 10 for me. I love this album.
You can still do the ratings if you want, but just feel like we
Keep it quick.
Yeah, we gotta keep
Hurry
it on the
up.
fast side. Just too much
Concise
ground to
actually
cover.
is the polite way to say that.
All right, well, Brandon, concisely tell us how you feel about this album.
It rips. This album has some of their best riffs. My 4 favorites, just to name a few: Chimes at Midnight, Asleep in the Deep, Ember City, and fucking Diamond in the Witch House. Oh my fucking god, does that song?
I totally forgot about mentioning that one. Yeah, that is another favorite of mine too. Yes.
I'm a big fan of the last song on albums. Like, I
kind of like Rex wanting the main person to die in a movie.
I always for okay, how are they gonna send us off in this album? And Diamond in the Witch House is one of my all-time favorite final songs on an album ever. Like, it is so good.
Looks like they killed it in the end.
They got you fully loaded.
Hell yeah, they killed it in the end. No, I agree. I think it's a really solid album.
I'm sorry.
Cold Dark Place. It's only 4 tracks. Glad that you tossed it on there, though. It was pretty good. I really love that song, Blue Walsh. I think that's probably the standout track. But honestly, it's only 4 tracks, so they're all pretty badass. And I remember looking at my phone a few times when this one was on, and I was like, God damn, the songs are sick, because I thought it was shuffling at first, and when I looked, I was like, no, they're all in a row. And yeah, it's good. It's a good little EP, and I don't typically like EPs, so
yeah, I mean, it's hard to believe that those are actually all cut songs from Once More Around the Sun and Emperor of Sand, which we'll get to.
Yeah, I wouldn't have cut any of those songs. I mean, shit, they're fucking. I would have just added 2 each per album, and you would have been good. But I do enjoy it. I did think it was damn good for an EP, and like I said, I probably only like about a handful of EPs. So
yeah, Toe to Toes is such
one.
a sweet song.
Oh, definitely, yeah.
Probably the one I know the most.
Yeah, I think that's the song that took off the most from that EP is Toe to Toes for sure.
Hell yeah. What about you guys on the EP? I know I skipped Emperor of Sand, but they both came out the same year, so
you could have ordered them either way,
Different, but same.
I'm big on cut tracks getting like their own recognition.
I love
You know,
that track.
not having to wait for a deluxe edition of an album. You know, like 10 years later, to be like, oh no, these are songs that didn't make it. It's like, dude, just play them out. Like, just give me a B-sides, man. Like, I'm cool with getting a B-sides or something. So no, I do.
B-side this.
They're all good. All four of those tracks are really, really good. Cold Dark Place, your little finisher, Brandon. That one's the one I like the most.
Finish him. Rex, did you skip this one or did you get through
No,
it?
I listened to it. This is one of the ones I highlighted. Probably because it came right after Emperor's Sand. But no, Toe to Toes is the one that stood out to me. I like that song for the 2 times I listened to it. It's definitely one I remembered. Cold Dark Place was all right. That's about all I can really say about it. It's really hard to get into specifics like you guys, just because like these guys aren't just a surface level band. Like I kind of akin them, not 1-to-1, but I mean like Fall of Troy. They're a really intricate band as far as their guitaring and how they layer their music and how they arrange it and everything. And like I said earlier, how concise they are with everything. It's just something you have to dig into more. You can't just be like 2 listens and be like, yeah, these guys suck. Or like, you know, either way, that's how I feel about the rest going forward. Is they're good. I don't have much to say. It's hard.
It's hard.
Really hard. It's really hard. Like, you guys have been listening to years. I've listened for 2 weeks, and like I said, it's a lot to unpack with these guys.
Yeah. No,
understandable.
I like to hear your take on it. It's cool.
No, it's great. I mean, yeah, the EP, it has 2 different sounds to it, and that makes a lot more sense hearing that they're cuts from 2 different albums, like 10 years apart almost.
Get those cuts.
Those extra cuts and B-sides that Danny loves so much.
I do. If they're good.
Yeah. You got to have a good cut.
Then it's like, just let me buy this album to throw it around real quick.
Hell yeah.
Yeah. Gotta have a good cut, yeah. Yep. All right.
All right, well, let's talk Emperor of Sand, because I did skip it, but like I said, they were kind of released the same year. There's 3 years in between Once More Around the Sun and that album. So it's kind of a nice, interesting transition in sound again, which they're kind of masterful at, but all while retaining their Mastodonism, which is pretty sick, you know. And it's also another one that's pretty close to a masterpiece. Like it's not like I found any tracks on any of these albums to be bad. Just, you know, there was never like, God, this song sucks. Like that just doesn't exist for them. But like I mentioned it earlier, Steam Breather. That was another one that I picked the guitar up and I was like, I got to learn that riff. That riff is fucking totally badass. Same thing with Show Yourself and Sultan's Curse. Man, I love both of those songs.
Oh, Show Yourself is their poppiest song too. It's like it's so
very
cool to see them do a song like that.
100%. That's one of the reasons I like it. I like when bands can do that because it shows their songwriting ability. You know, they're able to step outside their comfort zone and do something like that and kill it. It's
well, and I love the duality of that song. It's their most upbeat song, their poppiest song, but it's about death.
Just sweet tambourine in the background.
Hell yeah. Oh yeah, another one I can't not mention is Scorpion Breath. That song is also fucking so badass.
Yeah.
But yeah, overall, I really like this album too. You know, I know we haven't really been given these albums ratings, but they would all probably be like solid 8, 9, 10s for me for sure.
Oh, for sure, yeah.
I don't think any of them. Yeah, like nothing.
For sure.
There's nothing that's even mediocre about these guys. So that's definitely a nice breath of fresh air in the genre and just rock in general. So rock metal. But that's how I feel about it. Take it away, somebody.
Dude, Roots Remain. We mentioned it earlier. That song is just like, and it's like right in the middle of the album too. So it's like at a good point where, you know, it's not like the album gets stale by any means, but, you know, the songs you mentioned are all the ones I like too, but you didn't mention Roots Remain. And, that one to me is just, yeah, the transition and Braun's vocals are so good in that song. Yeah. That's another, Let Me Fly song.
Oh, for sure. The solo, dude.
Let me fly. I mean, they got a Let Me Fly song.
Hell yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I love that album too. My favorite four on the album start with Roots Remain, Word to the Wise, Ancient Kingdom, will remain. I love that shit.
Hell yeah, that song's
Destiny
tight.
is just a sick ass song. But a funny little story is I have this on vinyl and I'm listening to it. I didn't even look at the back or anything. I just got home, opened it up, started listening to it, and then as I'm listening to it, I do start looking at the back, and you know, I see that Roots Remain isn't listed on the tracks. I'm like, what the heck? My favorite song isn't on here, and then. Well, it's called Eons on the vinyl release, which I think is kind of a cool little piece of trivia. Is that song's
That's
got two
crazy.
names? I don't know why, but it's called Eons on the vinyl release, and then Roots Remain everywhere else.
Maybe they got sued by In Flames, a Swedish or Finnish heavy metal band. They have a album called Re-Root to Remain. That has nothing to do with it. I just thought that was interesting.
All right.
Moving on.
Hell yeah. No, yeah, I agree. I agree with everything you said, and I did notice that about the vinyl too, because I was confused. I was like, "What the fuck?"
Yeah,
yeah.
Huh?
I didn't look into why. I'm sure there's a logical reason. There might even be a cool reason, but something to maybe look into at the end after the episode. But what about your Rex? How did it grab you?
This album was really sweet. Andromeda was a sweet song. This is like an album. I don't know if you guys played it, but that Shadow of Mordor game, like that second one, like this is an album that I feel like should have been the soundtrack for that whole fucking game. Because when I was listening to this album, and this is one I actually specifically made sure to listen over to, like I was like, I don't know why, but the whole time I'm like, dude, I want to fuck some orcs up, dude. I want to play that game like just with this whole album just blaring in the background, dude. Like
that's good.
Murder it, dude. So no, but this album was tight. No, this album is tight, and that "Show Yourself" song is one I was gonna mention. I really liked. It's definitely a song that should have probably gone real mainstream. But yeah, Andromeda.
It was a single for the
Ancient
album.
Kingdom.
For sure, dude. It's just like
was it?
Yeah.
That opening, just show yourself, show yourself. It's so like it gets the shoulders moving. It's another dance move for me. A little shoulder.
Danny having a seizure on screen.
Hell yeah.
Not yet.
I hope that's not like a precursor to
Yeah.
incident, but yeah.
I'm not epileptic. Just to clarify, I'm not epileptic, okay?
Good.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if you had a chance to listen to it, Rex, but I put their Stairway to Heaven cover on here.
I did listen to that.
I think that's how do you even freaking like duplicate a solo like that? I don't even understand,
dude.
It's a lot of,
I don't understand. I don't understand half of what these guys do, anyways. It's like I said when I listened to Fall of Troy. It's mind blowing, and I don't get it, but it's so fucking sick.
Yeah, that Stairway to Heaven cover is pretty damn good, and I usually don't like people covering Zeppelin, but man, they fucking studied the shit out of that song. You can tell.
I don't usually like covers in general, but yeah, I mean, their tour manager Nick John was a huge Zeppelin fan, so they covered that for him in honor of him.
Fuck yeah,
that's tight.
Well, a surprising thing here is the way you compared Hushed and Grim to Floyd and Emperor of Sand to Zeppelin.
Well, Hunter to Zeppelin.
I mean Hunter, my bad. Yeah. It's funny because I love Zeppelin way more than Pink Floyd. That's no secret. But I did prefer Hushed and Grim more than the Hunter, only because it's hard to explain. But man, that album just feels so like polished and perfect, and I can't really put it into words. But that would be my 10 out of 10 on this whole list for sure. It was my favorite album by them by far.
Hushed and Grim.
Yeah,
it's so good.
It really is. It's the only one I don't even own by them. So as soon as I was done listening to that album, I was like, fuck it. I'll buy that shit right now. But
hell yeah.
But I was blown away by it. It also has Soundgarden's Kim Thale, the guitar player for that band, is on the song "Had It All," and
Oh, really?
yeah, he plays the solo on that song, and he fucking kills it. And I was super stoked to see him in the track listing before I heard, because this is when we went into this was the only Mastodon album I'd never even listened to, so it was new to me for this playlist.
Hell yeah.
And it just kicked me right in the sack, if I can say that out there for the viewers. Right in the sack. Like, I mean, and I wrote down all the songs I love from it, but I stopped because I was just damn near writing down every fucking song.
Yeah,
but
I guess I just love this album.
yeah, like, I mean, but to name a few that really stand out, though, like The Crux, Sickle and Peace, Skeleton of Splendor, Peace and Tranquility, and Savage Lands. Yeah, like,
love that shit.
Did you stop singing the song?
Hey, listen, man, that's his shit. That's his shit.
But that's like I just imagine Troy going and just win fucking like sick,
yeah.
man.
Like
Love
that
fucking
from
epic.
Pentagram, the lead singer, that old man dude with the eyes.
Oh hell yeah, Pentagram rules.
It's fucking awesome. But yeah, I mean, it's just a great album, and man, I just appreciated the shit out of it once I was done. And again, I also love the album cover. It's nothing fancy, but at the same time, it's just
Pretty
perfectly
gothic.
dark and somber. Yeah, exactly.
It's
really
pretty
gothic.
intricate. If
Yeah.
you really look at that piece of art, there's a lot of little details in it that are cool.
Yeah, I'd like to have a poster of that cover, to be honest. I like it's in black and white too.
Well,
but
the vinyl comes with one.
oh shit, yeah, glad I just bought that bitch then.
Score.
Hell yeah. What about you guys? Hushed and Grim. How does it grab you?
This is one of my favorite albums of theirs. Not to be impartial because it's the newer one, but like this was kind of really appreciating Mastodon more than I already had. This had obviously been after I'd seen them twice. No, just once. I saw them with Brandon, and so I think the second time I saw them, this album had just come out, and so I got to see a lot of this live, which was so good, dude. Oh my god. Some of the ones that stand out to me: Tear Drinker, freaking Sickle and Peace, like you said earlier, Gigantium. I think I'm saying that right. The last track is pretty epic. My favorite track and one of my favorite songs by them overall is More Than I Can Chew. And that's another great music video that's very Soundgarden-esque, that they took that music video's a trip. But it's such a crazy music video too, because like it shows all the guys singing and like their faces are all distorted. It's like this crazy mushroom trip. Like it's wild. But yeah, this is another one of my favorite one of their albums. I really like this one. And there's a lot of tracks on this one too. I feel like this is like their girthiest album.
This is their first technically double album, which
maybe that's what it is.
isn't even a thing anymore with digital music and shit.
Hey man, Hypnotize
Yeah, it is.
Just release as many songs as you want. Fucking who cares?
They still do double albums though.
Hypnotize,
Yeah.
Memorize.
That was
Mesmerize.
before the
Not,
digital
not a
era.
double album, but that's okay.
Shut up. It's true, dude.
It isn't. They were released months apart. A double album? No, listen. A double album is like Pink Floyd's The Wall. That's two albums in one. Hypnotize and Mesmerize were released 6 months
think
apart.
you listen to either of those because
It's not about the music. I mean, it's what the definition of a double album is.
the end of the last song on the
I
second
know.
song on the face album, it's
No.
You're on shaky ground, Danny. You're on
Hey,
shaky
you're
ground.
Hey, you're not teaching me things that I don't fucking know. What I'm trying to tell you is that Melancholy and the Infinite Sadness is a double album. One album is Melancholy, one album is Infinite Sadness. That's an intended double album release. Hushed and Grim is Hushed and Grim.
Craven, calm down. Oh.
I'm just telling you guys. Motherfucker. I'm just
Okay.
explaining to you. I'm not saying like you're wrong that the albums connect. They do connect. They 100% do. But it's not a traditional double album release is my only point. Anyway, continue.
Would that be like calling Colors and Colors 2 a double album when it's
Exactly.
two distinct albums?
I lose. I'm an idiot. Get fucked, okay?
Finally, some sense has been
You're not
spoken.
an idiot, goddammit. I'm just explaining to you the differences between those things. Motherfucker.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
You're
That was
beautiful, man.
my
You're
thought.
beautiful.
Oh, that's beautiful, guys. That's beautiful.
Oh,
Everybody
Rex.
learned something.
Rex, Hushed and Grim.
This was I can't name any specific song on this album, but I did mention earlier, which is funny, the Pink Floyd vibes I got from this album, and you know, Brandon mentioned that if you like Pink Floyd, you're gonna like this album,
Mm-hmm.
which is I felt a lot through this one because I was like listening to him like who the is singing right now, because I really feel like there's points that they're kind of singing almost like
Gilly
Roger Waters
or
or
what? Or
or
Rodney.
whoever. Yeah, I'm not sure who really sang most of the "Wish You Were Here" album, but you nailed it when you said that "Welcome to the Machine." Like bits of that have been pulled out. No, it's yeah. It's
I
kind of
swear to
all I
God,
got
that
say about it.
laser was pulled out of Welcome to the Machine and was like placed in certain songs on this album.
But no, yep, that's all I got to say.
Oh, hell yeah. Brandon Hushton Graham.
Again, I love it. I told you guys going into it, I wasn't gonna have really anything bad to say. Hush and Grim is great. I want to just point out a few tracks from the first half and a few from the second because it is a double album, and I want to make sure everything is kind of getting its due. I love More Than I Could Chew, Sickle in Peace, and Skeleton of Splendor. I think are all so sweet. Those are fun songs. More Than I Could Chew is, yeah, that video is great. Go check it out.
It's more than you can chew.
But I love Dagger because Dagger is super psychedelic and it has that little laser sound in it. I freaking Had It All is great. Gobblers of Dregs is a really cool song too, and Eye of Serpents is those. So those are like all my favorites. I think I just listed off like half the album, so it's a good one.
That's the beauty of this album. Hell yeah! Right. Well, let's end the episode with our personal opinions overall. I know you mentioned you had nothing negative to say about Mastodon. I actually don't either. Like, I know I challenged you before the recording, like, oh, you should be able to critique your favorite bands and say, but like, to be honest with you, like, what is there negative to say about it? They only get better. Their production is great. They fit perfectly into the progressive metal rock niche genre. They have hit their mainstream strides here and there. I mean, they're celebrated, but not celebrated enough. I think they're pretty underrated. Again, they're not a go-to band for me in that category, but every time you play them, I dig it. I love it, and like I said, I do buy their albums. I have their albums. Got most of them on CD and the majority of them on vinyl. I don't just do that for any band. So I think that speaks volumes. I would give the majority of these albums, like I said, 9 or a 10. I'd give the band overall probably a 10. I mean, shit, you don't go from being the everyman to being in a fucking successful progressive metal band that constantly reinvents themselves and puts themselves in a new bracket without being masters of your craft. So,
hell yeah,
I think Mastodon's pretty sick. What about you fellas? Danny, Mastodon.
This band sucks. I don't, I'm right there with you. I don't usually say it lightly about, stuff that I get introduced to. I like to always want to, find stuff on my own, but I'm stoked that, Brandon showed me this band because they've easily become one of my favorite bands. Not just, currently, but like ever. And it takes a lot of listens. I mean, I kind of understand where Rex is coming from, where, you go over what I think is my favorite album, and for you to say that you skimmed over it, I'm like, I don't know.
I don't mean that in a bad way.
No. But I'd like to say, I get what you're saying. And I think that to really appreciate Mastodon for everything that they are capable of and that they can do, it requires multiple listens. Because I felt like every time I would listen to, them again or listen to a certain track again, I always hear something different. And I kind of have an ear for that, and I kind of appreciate it a little bit more. But they're definitely one of those bands where, the more you listen, I think the more you appreciate, what they're doing and how they're doing it and how successful they have been. Like you guys were saying, there's really no downfall to this band. There's nothing that I could be like, well, they could work on this or they could work on that. And like, no. Like, the best thing they can do is mature even more than they already have and get that sound to, something that's better. I mean, if that's possible. I mean, I feel like at this point they really couldn't put anything bad out, but who's to say, But overall, yeah, this is one of my favorite bands. So I was a giddy little boy wanting to do this episode.
Hell yeah.
Next.
Hell yeah. Yeah, Rex, why don't you tell us, because we'll let Brandon take us out with Mastodon since he brought us in. It's his favorite band, one of his favorite bands, so about a bait.
Overall, yeah, I like them so far. What I've listened to, it's going to take a little while to kind of not to gain the appreciation because I already have it for them just listening to these albums, but to like fully understand what I'm listening to and hearing everything because it's sick. They're sick. They're awesome, and I kind of am glad they haven't gotten too popular because I feel like record labels get their fingers too much into stuff like that, and they'll start having people come help them write stuff that they don't need help.
Mm-hmm.
And that I think is kind of why they've stayed awesomely in their lane, but evolving from what I can tell. But I'll listen more to these guys. I do like that Danny said they're better live than they are on the album. Like that's
You
the
don't hear
only
that
other
that
time.
often.
No,
Yeah.
the only other time I can really think about that is when Brand New played The Devil and God Are Raging Inside Me from start to finish. That was probably one of the best live shows I've ever seen. But it's
Hell
really
yeah.
awesome that these guys were able to do that, especially because in terms of being musicians, these guys top Brand New tenfold. Like Brand New is good where they're at, but this kind of musicianship is insane.
Hell
Yeah,
yeah.
that's what I got to say.
I
I'll
agree
definitely
with
be
that.
listening more.
Agreed.
Hell yeah. I love them. Top 5 favorite band of all time.
Hell yeah.
Fuck yeah.
Hell yeah. Maybe one day we'll have to do an episode of our favorites. Ladies and gentlemen, this has been Mastodon. I'm your host, Practical.
Oh, real quick before we go.
Whoa.
Uh-oh.
Back it up. Give it to me.
Go ahead.
They appeared on an episode of Game of Thrones as White Walkers.
That's right.
Oh,
That's
fuck
right.
yeah,
That's right.
that's
I
awesome.
did see that. That's sick.
That is sick. It's the perfect project for them.
I mean,
Especially Gandalf, if one of them looks like Gandalf.
it's the part, bro.
Yeah,
Oh yeah, Gandalf
Sorry.
goes whale watching and then it creates whale core.
I just wanted to get that in there.
Glad you did, man.
Yeah. No, I'm glad. I'm glad as well.
What's our next episode?
Wim Wenders, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
Hell yeah.
Wim Wenders.
Don't know if you guys are familiar with that director, but it's another one of Bont's picks. You might know
Yep.
the movie Paris, Texas. That might be one of his
Not a
biggest
clue.
releases. If you don't know the movie, Rex, if you need to come watch some of those movies, I got
All
you.
of them.
Hell
I
yeah.
think I know one of those on the list, so yeah, we just got to plan that out. But yeah,
Hell yeah. Well, this has been Mastodon, Atlanta, Georgia, progressive metal rock band. Check them out. 8 albums deep. This is your boy Practical.
Danny boy.
it's your boy Rex.
This is Brandon, and I hope everyone has a great week.
Hell yeah.
Wow,
You-
that was very nice.
You sure you don't want to lead us out with you singing one of Mastodon songs? Because I've been enjoying it.
Yeah,
Hell yeah.
Mastodons for Mastodon.
We'll catch you guys next week.
Bye.
Later.
Bye-bye.